Okay, everybody, welcome to an episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we have that age-old comparison of mainstream versus micro. Now, in terms of the mainstream side, we have a Seiko. A little about the brand. They were founded back in 1881. They're iconic Japanese brand, of course, and they cover all market segments from entry-level to high-end. Whereas on the Microbrand side, we have Wise. They're a Thai watch brand offering a blend of high quality and affordable pricing, designed and hand-assembled in Thailand. In terms of the specific watches, of course, these are both dive watches. And on one side, we have the Prospex Marinemaster SLA079. And on the other, we have the Adamascus AD810A-S. In particular, it's the 8810A-S. And essentially, the Marinemaster is the modern reinterpretation of Seiko's original high-beat diver from 1968 that would later go on to inspire the JDM Marinemaster 300 diver line and various similarly styled variants. Now, in terms of the Wise diver, this is definitely their vision of a premium automatic diver offering a slim case profile and full 904L stainless steel construction, now on their gorgeous 904L bracelet featuring toolless micro-adjusting clasp. Now, of course, the price points on these are quite different. Now, the MSRP on the Seiko is going to be $2,900, and rightfully so. It's an iconic model from an iconic brand, also fully in-house. But the Wise watch is definitely no slouch, especially at the full retail price of $930, although these were on sale at one point for just $649 while in stock. So you're getting a whole lot for your money. Of course, you're not going to necessarily get those in-house attributes or the historical significance that comes from an upstanding brand that's been around since 1881. But for those of you that are more bullet point oriented, those spec sheet hunters out there, you're going to find a whole lot to like with this Wise watch. So with all that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get these pieces in hand, and take a closer look. Okay, now some of you may say these are not comparable, just because one, of course, is quite an icon, while the other is definitely more of an upstart. But I think there's a lot in common here. No, the Wise is not, I wouldn't consider it an homage to the Marinemaster, but they definitely do share a lot of similar characteristics in terms of the overall appearance, right? Where you have this retro style, you have some beautiful shapes and facets, mixtures of angles and, and sculpted curvature. And then, of course, in these more monochromatic layouts, they do share a certain styling to them, right? And then even down to the fact that the dials are very nicely textured, one here with that granular texture and here with that beautiful angular geometric pattern. Check that out. Very, very cool. And these do have some things in common. Like they both have higher beat movements with that 4 hertz sweep, which is going to equal out to 28,800 vibrations per hour. And then just one is going to have a 42 hour power reserve versus the good old 50-hour power reserve here from this beautiful 8L movement. Now, of course, there are going to be some things in terms of niceties of in-houseness and history and those types of things, but not everybody really cares about that. But there are going to be some trade-offs here, because here you're going to get that nice hard coating, and then here you're going to get that beautiful 904L stainless steel, which is going to be able to be polished to an extremely high luster, which you might be able to see, but you're probably just catching more fingerprints and smudges on my side. But I will say, in the metal, in the flesh, whatever you want to consider it, it is really, really quite breathtaking. And both of these are very handsome and very capable dive watches. And I hope that between the two of them, you viewers out there can find one of them that you like, because I know a lot of people just come to videos to talk about what they don't like and try to poo-poo on anything that's out there. But I will say, if there's things you don't like about this watch exists So you can absolutely kind of have all of the like the nitpicks, and you want this to be thinner, smaller. You want it to have a 6 o'clock date window, all those little things. Hey, guess what? You can have them here. And if you see this and you're like, man, I wish there was something like this, but with some heritage, I want something from an outstanding brand that's been around for a long time, something maybe a little bit more functionally overbuilt, then you have a watch like this that exists. And I wear both of these pretty regularly. I'll say, I am a big Seiko fanatic, so I do wear the Marinemaster quite a bit. I mean, this is one of my most worn watches, and it's fantastic. It's one of my favorite divers, but I cannot that doesn't discount or discredit the objective value proposition that a watch like this beautiful Wise offers. In terms of the dimensions, I think a lot of people might find this more preferable. Now, this is going to be the more wearable, Marinemaster 300 that's ever been made, which is really nice, and one of the reasons why I pulled the trigger on it. But down to the digits and the numbers and the dimensions, this right here is just going to stand quite a bit on better ground, right? So you're 41 millimeters in diameter, only 11.5 millimeters thick, so quite thin there, guys, and then 47.5 millimeters lug to lug. Now, when you compare that to the Seiko, with that 42.6 millimeter diameter, or about 41.5 across the bezel there, and then the 13.4 millimeters of thickness, and the 49.1 millimeters lug to lug, now the footprint here is going to be a little bit less accommodating and friendly. Again, although, of course, this model pulls out all of the Seiko stops for making it wear quite well, you have something that is just going to be physically a bit smaller, that's going to wear just a bit better for most wrists. And it's not going to fit small on larger wrists by any means, but it is going to be a little more compact for smaller wrists. And yeah, this is something that stands out quite a bit. I mean, even if you don't know watches, if you don't know Wise watches, this is one you're going to look at and you're going to know that there's something special about it. This definitely is not a watch that happened by accident. There's a lot of deliberate design choices that came together really beautifully here. Now, the movement inside is just going to be your standard Miyota 9015. So 42-hour power reserve, like I mentioned, 4 hertz or 21,800 vibrations per hour in terms of the beat rate. But the nice thing is you do get a display back. Check that out. And some people will say on a dive watch, I don't really care. Or on a watch with a generic movement, I don't really care. But I would say most folks are going to enjoy a nice open case back when you have the chance, and it's not hindering or having any other trade-off in terms of functionality. Another piece of great kit here is one of the better micro adjustable bracelets. Look at that, spring-loaded, very reminiscent to the T-fit that you would get from a Tudor, which is going to be a lot more expensive. Now, is this going to be as smooth as a Tudor? Absolutely not. But I will say it's good. It's very, very good. I do wish there was a bit more of a taper on this bracelet. As you guys can see, it's 20 millimeter lugs. But then in terms of the taper itself, it just it's a mild taper, just down to about 17.8 millimeters. So just under 18 millimeters. So just slightly more than a 2 millimeter taper. Although again, it looks very, very handsome. I wish it had more of a taper, not necessarily because I feel the links are wide. I just feel like this clasp is a bit wide, because it has to fit that, right? So if that would have tapered down smaller, then this could have been a little bit tighter. But I mean, again, this is just beautifully constructed, guys, and very, very functional. Now, on the other side, a lot of people might consider this the weak point of the Seiko is going to be the bracelet. I mean, the links themselves are still quite nice, but you're not going to get screw pin construction. You're not going to get a spring-loaded toolless micro adjustment. You're going to get a very simple manual micro adjustment. You're going to get some stamped elements in here to include this diver's extension, which people pretty much universally do not like. I don't necessarily mind it because I don't see a drawback to it because everything tucks away quite nicely. So again, I don't mind it, but you know what? I also have hundreds of watches, so I've learned to kind of appreciate every watch's quirks. Now, if I could just have one watch, then that's where it gets a little bit more complicated, because with just one, the one with lesser compromises is typically going to be the one that rules the day. But overall, no matter what, in terms of compromises, in terms of fit and finish, and, all the different value proposition arguments you might make, the watch you want to wear is going to be the watch that you wear. And some of you might, like myself, can admit that this is an amazing value. But are you motivated to wear this watch is the question. Whereas here, this is no question. I am highly motivated to wear this watch, and I wear it quite often. And I struggle to wear other watches and find reasons. And I mean, this watch is competing with, Omega watches in my collection in terms of what I might wear. So that just goes to show how much holistically I appreciate and adore this watch. Versus here, it's definitely a different side of my brain that's telling me, hey, this is an amazing timepiece. It has a lot of value, but am I motivated to collect the Wise brand? Am I motivated to educate and talk to others about microbrands? I am. I do enjoy that. But I will say the average person doesn't care about independent microbrands. The average person cares more about the romance that comes with a mechanical timepiece, which a lot of that does tie into, of course, the history around them. Whereas Wise doesn't have quite that much history yet. I do think what they're doing objectively in terms of quality, in terms of execution, cannot be denied. This is one of the finest divers you can get under $1,000, and you can get it for well under $1,000 at that. And notice I didn't say finest microbrand specific. Like, this is just one of the best constructed divers under $1,000, period. And I don't care if it's Swiss made or anything. Like, this is amazing. You could have put a 2892 in here, or an LJP movement, a G100, like something like that. You could have put a thin Swiss made movement in here, and you could have said this was Swiss made, and you would charge a lot more for it, and you wouldn't need to upgrade any of the fit and finish on it. I'd say maybe the bezel action. It's not bad, but the grip ergonomics, it looks better than probably it feels. And the grip, there's a slight amount of give, but things do line up relatively good. But there are a lot of polished surfaces. So when I'm handling something like that, then yeah, what's going to end up happening is there's going to be all these smudges, and I'm going to have to wipe the smudges off. So, but I'd say, like most desk divers, you're probably not going to be fidgeting with the bezel too much. So you're just going to leave it in place. It's going to look quite good in place, and I mean, man, quite good guys. But something like this, hey, you're also going to get that 120 click bezel, but this is from a brand that loves functionality. You're getting that ISO compliant, thoughtful engineering there, guys. And it's a beautiful watch that also is quite bulky, overbuilt, but it is quite refined. And again, one of my favorite dive watches. So maybe not the fairest comparison, or maybe it's awesome, because if you're somebody that adores this watch, and this still makes a case for itself, I'm not just throwing this watch out. No, look, if you can't afford, you're just not willing to spend this much on a dive watch, but you still want something that can hold its own, this holds its own. I'd say more than holds its own, and it does an amazing job. And if you like that aesthetic, which I'd say does take some elements from the Marinemaster style, as well as the 6105, amongst other design inspirations. And of course, with this beautiful kind of flat link style, it also has some Swiss influences as well. And it's just a good looking watch at the end of the day. These are both outstanding pieces. They're in crazy different price ranges. Absolutely. Under $3,000, under $1,000. Like, is this watch 3 times better? Some people will think so. And that's because they're going to value things that might be more objective for one, might feel, more subjective for another. So things like heritage, things like in-house creativity, in-house design, and that bag, this is going to have an infinite amount of more value. Whereas if you're not worried about that and you're more so just like, I want the specs, I want the fit, the finish, I want the beautiful, like that side of, if you're not worried about branding, if you're on counterculture to branding and you want to support these small niche brands with these great stories, hand assembled in Thailand, and they're just doing it to such a beautiful level, stuff like this is going to excite you. So with that said, let's actually get these on wrist and see how they wear. Okay guys, as you can see on my 7.5-inch wrist, look at the thinness there. Profile is amazing. Of course, with all the high polished surfaces, you're going to get some smudging and whatnot, but I mean, is it worth it? Yeah, look at that. Again, the fit and finish here are going to be quite comparable to watches that are going to cost twice as much and carry, confidence boosters like Swiss made quality in terms of some of the branding you would get from something comparable in terms of the fit and finish. I do really enjoy that geometric wave pattern that is on the dial, which tends to disappear and then reappear and play with the light in a very nice, interesting way. Of course, now on the other side, I hit the old tripod there. We have this outstanding piece of kit, the good old Marinemaster. Now, of course, this isn't the old Marinemaster. This is the new one. But it has all of the tricks still up its sleeve in terms of those beautiful bevels, undercuts, slats, in between, high polished, and just fantastic hairline finishing. This is an absolute beast, and it is a dive watch with history that you can be proud of, regardless of the other watches that might be in the pool, because even ones with more prestige that are going to cost more money than this, again, this is a continuation of an iconic line that really was something special horologically and historically in terms of its significance. So this just has more of an it factor versus here. It's speaking to a lot of beautiful, iconic design elements that blend together to create something that still feels quite original, and less derivative, thanks to their balance of, kind of the different design elements that they incorporated. But, ultimately the iconography here is not self-made. It's keying into and pulling heartstrings for design elements that were made by other brands and designers. Of course, if I get my wrist a bit too close to the camera lens, you're going to notice the watches just seem quite a bit larger, and that's because there's going to be a fair amount of perspective distortion. So what I'll do is keep my wrist nice and low, and then just tighten up the frame like so that you guys can get still a detailed look, but just add a bit of a truer aspect ratio as to how this may lay on your own wrist. And as you can see, beautifully centered. Now you can see the sides of the bracelet draping nicely. Look at the thinness there. Hard to argue with that. Nicely signed crown. Now again, that bezel grip is going to look a little bit better than it's going to feel in hand, but man, it is a looker. I have to say, this is, again, if this was a Longines, if this was a Certina, a Miyota, you would be paying a lot more for something of this caliber in terms of the physical construction, the fit, the finish, everything like that. It's just very, very special. Now, Here, this is going to be able to compete with much more expensive watches because it is a bit more expensive, right? At just under $3,000. But I will say there are, you could cross shop this against watches that cost $3,000 and $4,000. And you might even prefer to wear this over watches that cost $5,000 or $6,000. And that has to do with the fact that you do get objective qualities like in-house design language, in-house movements, lubricants, homegrown jewels. And again, just for me, it's just the design language. You get a watch that looks great, that is a continuation and an evolution of the design language that you fell in love with, versus one that is recapturing a look and feeling like it could be from an era and evoking, those types of niceties. Here you have something that aligns at a higher level in terms of just the design, the history. And yeah, if you like mechanical watches, the history of them and the idea of the longevity behind them and the historical impact that they played over the years, a lot of that nostalgia is worked into the formula. And I have to say that this covers those bases. But there are people, again, that will be a bit anti-establishment and say, hey, well, I am the opposite. I do not want the established brand. This is too much for me. I think many folks do enjoy this watch, and, they compare it to its Swiss contemporaries and say, hey, this is why I'm excited about this watch, which can compete with these more mainstream watches. But at the same time, the more you learn about it, the more you realize it's quite a bit ahead of many of its mainstream Swiss contemporaries. And then you have something like this, which, its whole existence is just to do something awesome. And they nail that, at the end of the day. So with that said, let's get these off the wrist, set up for some loom shots, light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. Hey, check it out. Now, the Seiko Lumibright is going to be brighter than the loom that's used on the Wise, but the Wise watch has more loom because it has a loomed bezel, and it shows, man. It looks good. I'd say even of course, there are going to be some things, don't be alarmed. Some of it might be just the focus of the camera in terms of the crispness that you're going to see here. But I think both render quite beautifully in the darkness. And again, you have some trade-offs there, but I will say this little Microbrand is no slouch. Now, in terms of what I like to work in, I'm always going to go for that low light transition because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So it's nice to see what these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting. And guys, the lighting here, look at these dials. I love that granular texture. I love that beautiful geometric wave pattern dial on the Wise as well. These are just handsome watches. They just hit the marks. And again, if I could only own one, it'd be the Marinemaster. I own the Marinemaster. I also own the Wise, but the Wise is more accessible, so I'd get my hands on that first. If I could only have one, it would be the Marinemaster, but I love the Marinemaster. But, it's one of those things where I gotta appreciate this Wise, and I know not everybody wants a Marinemaster. Some people are anti-Marinemaster. It's not this, it's not that, yada, yada, yada. To each his own. So, if you're going to be anti-Marinemaster, then feel free to enjoy this beautiful Wise watch. Support those independent brands that you wish that Seiko would take notes from. Give them your business because they're doing outstanding things. And again, ultimately, what you want to wear more is what you will wear more. You will not wear a watch simply because of the specs. It's just not how it works. If you did, then you would be wearing probably a digital watch, because the specs are going to be way more accurate and way more affordable versus something like a mechanical timepiece, where there is that emotional draw, that connection, that nostalgia, that passion, right? So already it's kind of a flawed setup. And if you want something, again, that is objectively, you know, this and that, you know, mechanical watches probably aren't really for you. You just like good deals. And if you're a deal hunter and you just like to have deals, whether it be cars or clothes, shoes, even dinner, right? You're just somebody who searches for those deals. Something like the Wise might be right up your alley. And then if you're a diehard enthusiast who appreciates the art, the design, the history, of course, the Seiko Marinemaster is going to be right in your wheelhouse. It doesn't mean that it's going to be in your spending bracket. You know, like, you might not want to spend them. You might say, hey, well, I'll just save another couple $1,000 and I'll just get myself a Tudor. But you'll have to remember that Tudor will always be a cheaper alternative to a Rolex, versus it being ultimately ever having that oomph of it being its best self. It is still a shadow of its big brother, a beautiful shadow, a valuable shadow, but it's in its DNA. They have to be very value oriented, because they were invented to be value oriented. Seiko was not. Seiko was invented to be innovative, to compete with the top brands, to excel above. Tudor wasn't meant to excel above Rolex or compete with Rolex. It was meant to offer an option for those who weren't really looking for that. And I think that's where things really differ. So, yeah, there are, of course, a lot of nuances to this conversation, and it's a long conversation here, guys, and I apologize if it's taken too long. But if you like the video, please do hit like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Guys, thanks for hanging in there. This was just another fun little ramble, but let me know what you think down in the comments below. Thanks, guys.